What's up, Squadron? Aviation has given me a ton of amazing experiences. And more importantly, it's introduced me to a whole new family of friends. Join us tonight because we're cleared direct for some hangar flying. I'm Bryon Dembroski, and this is SuperAero Live. What's up, Av Geeks? It's Wednesday, which can only mean one thing. It's time for another episode of SuperAero Live. Really pumped to have you all here. Really pumped to see a bunch of friendly faces in the chat. Just Plain Silly is here. Kyle Ludwig is here. He said they're watching live at Garmin HQ right now. No pressure. Thanks for that. Now I'm nervous and sweating. Zach Sherman is here. Brian Petro's here. I saw Jason is here. Chucky Fly is here. Air Max here. Ty's here. The whole gang is here, and I'm so excited. I'm so excited to have you guys here tonight because, as you know, I grew up. My aviation journey started in vintage aviation. I spent a lot of time in grassroots aviation. I spent a lot of time goofing around in old tail draggers. And our guest tonight, I'm going to introduce right now, Dewey Davenport. There he is.
How you guys doing today?
What's up, man? We're going to talk about biplanes tonight. I'm so excited.
I am too. It's a good thing to talk to you guys. It's kind of like a lost history, but I was born about 100 years too late.
I love it. Yeah, we were talking in the pre-show. I was like, yeah, I'm really pumped to who doesn't love a biplane? And you're like, some people don't even know what a biplane is, Ryan. Anyway, let's dig in, Dewey. I want to chat about first. I've got tons of questions from people about your amazing life that you lead. But first, if you could give me, if you're a superhero, which I kind of think you are, you lead a life like a superhero, what's the origin story? Yes! Where's the cape? What's the Dewey origin story? How'd you get into all this?
It started out when I was a kid, building models like plastics and rubber band and then RC airplanes. So I was probably 7 years old. RC when I was 11 years old. Kind of keep this real simple and quick, but I really started RC when I was 11 years old, and that kind of really just triggered everything. And from that on, point on, I started flying, real airplanes. When I was in high school, I was 18 years old. My parents let me take my first flight lesson in a J3 Cub, vintage antique airplane, and it kind of just went from there, So it's been a fun journey. I'm 45 years old now, so I've been flying a while, experienced a lot of different things. But the model airplanes is where it all started. And
I think you sent me a picture of you with an amazing RC or like that. That's insane.
That's one of the jets that I had. This is probably in 2005. That's an Aramaki MB339. It's awesome jet, good flyer. It had a turbine engine in it, a real turbine. So, my models. Oh, yeah, man. Jet A all the way.
That's amazing.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun. I really enjoyed the RC aspect of, my whole career and hobby. And I had a lot of fun flying these airplanes. That was down in Kentucky. The company I worked for, USA Jet, they would give me all the Jet A that I wanted anytime. So all the shows I'd go to, I'd carry 15, 20 gallons of Jet A at all the shows, and I'd burn up as much as I could, and then I'd give up the rest of the stuff to my friends. So,
well,
yeah.
That's an interesting perk.
Oh, yeah.
Job perk. It's just spare Jet A.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
So, okay, so talk to me. So you started in models, and then you went to I don't know if I got stuff in the right order here. I've got photos of you, like, hanging out with
Yeah,
skydiving folk. I don't know if that's what this is.
yeah,
Look.
that's me. Numbers. So that's quite a bit. I was 25 years old there. So in high school, I started lessons, got my license pretty much right out of high school. And then I actually went to a little flight school and got my instrument commercial rating, kind of like what we normally do. So I went to a little 141 program. After that, I was like 20 years old. I went to Skydive Greene County and asked if I could, they needed a pilot. So, I was flying a Piper Cub at that time, so I was ready to take on what they had there. And they had a Beech 18, and they actually had a DC-3 that was parked there, and we never flew it when I was there. But I started out, I was 20, 21 years old, and I started out flying the Beech 18 and a Cessna 180. And man, I tell you, it was a lot of fun. It was crazy. I had like 250 hours. The owner, Jim West, he trained me up, put me in the right seat at the beginning, and I got to land on the from the left seat. So
Sure.
start out on the right, land on the left, and then eventually I started doing all the takeoffs and stuff from the left seat and start soloing right away. And man, I flew that Beech 18. It was awesome. I'm not sure if I sent you a picture of that, but
I think you might have. Let's click through here and see, because I think there's a picture of you with it somewhere. Here's the
yeah,
skydive stuff.
yeah, those are Twin Otters up in Canada. It I went up there a couple years up the St. Catharines area, and I sent you those pictures because this is the first time they've ever had like a Twin Otter in that drop zone. And I was there for like 2 years flying, and then this was like the third year, and we brought in like 5 otters, and we were doing 100-way skydive attempts or something like that. And I was actually lead otter, so the one that is up on the top screen there, that was me flying lead, and a couple of other of my friends were flying, the trail aircraft. But that was the fourth airplane that was taking the picture there. But yeah, it was lots of fun, man. I learned a lot from flying skydivers and the Beech 18. I flew Twin Otters, and then the Casa 212. Also, I was flying that. I did that for flying skydivers.
Awesome. I found out. I'm gonna click through. We're gonna spoil. Aircraft Adventures is here. Hey, Aircraft Adventures. He says Beech 18 in your 20s. Are you sure this wasn't in the 1950s? And I'm gonna find the photo while we talk about that. We're gonna
Yeah.
go some top secret looking stuff here.
Oh yeah, some pretty crazy stuff here.
Let's get to the Beech 18 though. Oh man, I got it all in the wrong order there, Dewey. Look at you. We got some selfies, cockpit selfies. All right, here it is. Almost there.
Okay.
Almost there. There it is. Right? Did I find it?
Yeah. That's 3710 Bravo. Yeah, that was my baby. I flew that quite a bit. Hot, humid days in the Ohio weather here, and yeah, like I said, I was like 20 years old when I first started flying that airplane, and all the jumpers, they were all nervous. They were like, "Are you sure you're able to fly this plane? You're capable to handle this thing?" And I probably weighed about 135 pounds, soaking wet at that time. So yeah, I had a lot of fun flying that, and I flew a West Wind Beech also, which is just like that, but it's turboprop. PT6 is on it. I didn't have a lot of time flying the West Winds, but the Piston Beech I flew quite a bit. Yeah, that was
That's
a lot of
awesome.
fun.
A lot of
But I
people
did,
here are people in the chat are envious of that
yeah.
that experience.
I wonder, should I look at this chat? I'm not quite sure. Yeah, I could probably. It was a great thing. Jim West gave me an opportunity that, not a lot of people would probably give an opportunity to a young pilot like that. But I just kept showing up, Ryan, like every day, to where honestly, I like beat him down. He was like, "Okay, I guess I'll give you the opportunity to see if you can
Right.
handle this machine." And I spent over 4 years there, And just this past summer, I flew quite a bit of skydivers for them. Jim's not feeling all that well, so I kind of filled in, trying to help out. And man, it's like a family that nobody, you'll never experience anything like it, to be honest with you.
Absolutely. And that's actually, we were talking in the pre-show a little bit. One of the reasons I love your videos, we're kind of bouncing around, but that's okay. One of the things I love about there was just one of the most recent videos you just posted. You're doing some flying in a champ off this, like, it was like just, it reminded me of like the airport that that I had my training at, right? Like a small airport, got a cool community. You were talking to some kids about some tractor thing they had restored and were riding around on, and like that, like community connection is so prevalent still in your flying, and that's what I was really excited to talk to you about too, because I feel like people who normally fly, let me see if I can find it here, like normally fly not this stuff, that's normal for people who fly this stuff, right? They aren't necessarily always connected to the community anymore. Some people are, obviously, but when you're flying the like heavier iron, I think a lot of people fall out of touch with the passion side, and that's just so prevalent in the content you're making. So I don't, should we talk about this real quick since we're on the photos? Like, this is, your day job is pretty cool too.
Yeah, I work for the largest fractional ownership company, and currently I'm flying a Challenger 350. I think I've been in this airplane like 4 years now. So, when I first got hired, I was in the Encore Plus, and then the Excel, now in the Challenger. I've been thinking about going into the Global, but I'm not quite sure what I want to do. The Challengers, it's a nice, comfortable airplane to fly, and like you were just saying, I'm a grassroots pilot, and you're a grassroots person. You really understand what grassroots is, but my day job, I fly the most sophisticated airplanes also, and
Right.
so I'm able to go back and forth between flying grassroots or vintage stuff to flying the modern day aircraft. So it's a lot of fun. The Challenger has long legs, lots of power, nice cockpit. Like I said, very comfortable. I still think I tell a lot of captains and stuff I fly with. I said, man, we need to patent like a rowing machine that you can pull out of the floor when you're doing these long legs. You can get out and start exercising while you're flying with the autopilot on. So
I think
it gets a little long sitting there for 5, 6, 7 hours.
I was gonna make a joke. We had another vintage aircraft guy, Joe Costanza, aka Bananas, and he flies an Airbus. And he was talking about how he's got like a a table that folds out on the Airbus, and then he can just like do a puzzle or whatever. Maybe there's room for a rowing machine in that. You should just get into the Airbus.
Well, in the galley, there's plenty of room in the galley area, so
right.
Maybe I can patent it. I'm not quite sure.
Well, you just said it live on the internet, so it's too late to patent it now.
Trademarked.
So okay, so this is what's interesting to me, right? You've got this day job where you're flying jets, but then you've got this other, I think it's fair enough to call it a job, and you're a barnstormer. And maybe for folks who don't know, before we dig into kind of like all the cool things that come with that, like if you had to define what that is for folks, because it's like a lost art, I think.
Yeah. So barnstorming is a quick way to go broke. That's what it is. Okay. So no, so barnstorming, it started back in the early 20s, late teens. It's really right after World War I. And all the pilots here in America, the military pilots, they didn't have any jobs. And we had all the surplus of aircraft after the war. So what happened, the government sold these Jennies and the J1 Standards and aircraft like that for like pennies on a dollar, literally a couple $100. Well, these pilots bought these airplanes and started flying them around the country, offering rides, and anywhere between like 50 cents to $5 or $10. it just really depended on the barnstormer. But they would just land out in hayfields in little towns, and like I said, exhaust that town. They'd fly everyone, and then they'd go to the next town, and then they worked the airplane year round to make a living. And what happened, people, that was something people wanted to do, but then they want to see tricks. So now they started doing aerobatics and loops and rolls and all these stunts and wing walking. And then, the public wants to see crashes and different things. So that's really where the barnstorming, the air circus was developed. Ivan Gates, the Gates Flying Circus, was really like the largest and most advanced barnstorming circus probably ever, still today. And they lasted 9 years before they filed bankruptcy, but they flew thousands and thousands, close to 1 million people in the 9 years. So, before there was, commercial air travel, the barnstormers flew millions of Americans, all around the place, and just give them a little taste of the sky. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
that's what makes barnstorming so unique, because it's pure Americana. It's something that is lost even today, like the FAA and stuff. I mean, they really regulate us a lot with drug testing programs and all this stuff, but it's still a very pure form of flying that we don't really get to experience that much, except for a handful of barnstormers out here in America. And probably the most popular is Rob Locke. He's been hopping rides for probably 20 plus years. And, I don't even know how many people he's flown, but there are a few selected barnstormers out there today that are doing it for a living or close to making a living.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
No, I was gonna say, I think I told you just before we started that one of the cool things I had the opportunity to do was I know I can't remember her last name, Sarah, my friend Sarah, who I have to check in a while. Yes, you knew right away. Sarah Wilson took me up back when she had the Boeing Stearman Speedmail, and I went up with her, and there was we were at Broadhead, and there were two other guys. I should have researched the names before we jumped on the internet and in front of everybody. But like that day, what's that?
Ted Davis.
Yes, Ted Davis, absolutely. And then there was one other guy who had a yellow Waco, and you probably know who that guy was.
Josh Burnell.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
I win. Is it $1 million?
Yeah, I went. Well, as soon as I earn it. Yeah, so like that day, like I was just. Yeah, it was amazing, right? Like that day was like the Boeing Stearman Speedmail. Ted had the Travel Air, a new standard, yeah, and then we were in this bright yellow Waco, like, and It was just like such an insane day, and like there was, for me, as a young pilot at the time, the thing that blew my mind was the type of flying. It never felt risky. It never felt different even than what we were doing. It was just the way that it, like the attitude and the way that it was done put this like kind of magic over the top of it. I don't know if that makes any sense. Hanging out with Sarah and those guys like for the day, it was just, I don't know, it blew my mind. So I know Ted was hopping rides, and I already forgot the Waco guy.
Josh. Yep.
Yeah, Josh, like I asked Josh, like we're standing by the Waco, I'm like, man, how do you like own one of these? And he's like, you have to barnstorm or be like a millionaire.
One or the other. And
right.
I have to barnstorm.
So let's talk a little bit. So you say you are the modern day barnstormer. Yep. Is that you specifically? Is that like the Dewey trademark thing? And what does that mean?
Well, I'm Mr. Good Folk, so that is my trademark. But I am a modern day barnstormer, And why I say I'm the modern day barnstormer, because I do modern days things to barnstorm: social media, marketing. I use credit cards, and
Sure.
you
Okay.
know, that's a big thing. So social media is a big outlet for a barnstormer today. Uh, you know, why my business has been so successful and why I've flown so many people is through social media. People see photos and videos, and they want that same feeling, that same excitement that they see in these pictures and those videos. And that's why I've been able to do thousands of people, almost each and every year, because they want to experience what someone experienced 90 years ago. And how I am able to market that or advertise that is through Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. And that is what the modern day barnstormer brings to the table.
Gotcha.
Ted, there's times, Ted's a good friend of mine, but, he kind of would harass me a little bit about, well, how can you set up and, do this stuff on Facebook and this and this and this? And it's real simple, because uh, when I can go to a show and fly 100 people in a day through just off of Facebook or Instagram, and that is why I can set up and do my Facebook and Instagram post, because I want to share that experience that I just did, and I want to share it to the next person. So, like I said, people want to see it each and every day, and they want to feel it. Like you
Yeah.
said, you those rides in those biplanes, and it's like a magical experience. It's something. It's romantic. It's so different that you're it's like you're dreaming. I don't know.
Yeah. I
I
mean,
don't.
100%. No, I mean, I think like the story I tell everyone is like flying with Sarah. Like, we were filming a video to help promote her business when she had the Stearman Speed Mail, and I'm up in the front cockpit hanging out, shooting out the open cockpit with a camera, not a gun, a camera, and 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 then we're like done with the photo mission, and she's like, "Hey, we've got like 0.25 on the way back. Do you want to take the stick?" And I'm like, "Yeah, let's do it." And like, so she's teaching me about flying this giant biplane, and we're over the cornfields. I can smell the corn. We like went around the corner into kind of like there was a river. We were like over the river, and I could feel the temperature change because the river was colder. Like all that stuff that is just like blocked out when you're flying a spam cam or whatever, right? Like it's just like all of that. It was like, it felt like the closest to flying like as just a human being, right, that I've ever felt. So and it was just one day. I've only had one day of that, and I think about it like almost every day, right? Like it's, so I don't know. Maybe I'm gushing a little bit too much, but
Hey,
yeah.
you can order. I understand. That's why I do it. Since I was a kid, I wanted to have a biplane and my own grass strip, and to give rides, and that's what I've done. So when I started this barnstorming biplane business, a lot of my friends were like, "Man, how are you going to survive? And how is this going to work? Are you going to make money?" And when you hustle, it's like people just flock to you, and it is a lost history that people want to experience. So that is a big part of, like I said, my whole marketing strategy. I tell people I can take you and fly you over these fields. You're going to see the same thing that your great grandparents seen 90 years ago. And I've had people, when I land, they're crying, and it's emotional experience, and that's why I continue to do it, and that's why I keep continuing to have customers, because people do feel this elusive feeling that you don't get by flying a commercial airliner.
Absolutely. And speaking of customers, I think we're getting you a few in the chat right now. Robert says, "I'm sold. Where do I book?"
Well, you got a book in Ohio.
The other thing that was interesting is we were looking through the photos, and I don't know if you follow Aircraft Adventures on Instagram, but he immediately was like, "Wow, a Ford Model A Pete."
Mm-hmm.
Good
Oh, yeah.
eye.
Well, what's cool about the yellow and red Pete is a good friends, but there's maybe another one I sent you. It's red. So that's the oldest flying Pete and Pole air camper in the world, and it's in my hangar. So I fly it, a couple times a year. Oh yeah.
Let me see.
I'm not sure if the picture came up, but
well, wait a minute. This is before we look for the Pete though. This is your bird, right? This is.
That is my new standard. That's a D25 new standard. It was born June 26, 1930. So there's 8 of these. I tell people there's 8 of these flying in the world today. And that airplane was designed just to give rides. It holds 4 passengers. And I don't know how detailed that is, but I have 4 passengers in the front of that airplane right there, right now.
But if I remember from my ride with Ted, like cavernous up front. Like you don't think you climb up and you're like, oh wow, there is room for all of us up here.
Yeah, I tell people it has more room than Delta First Class, so it's pretty awesome. It's a very large biplane, and it's a 3,500 pound gross weight, and it was designed for the Gates Flying Circus. Ivan Gates had it designed, and the top wing is 45 foot, and it is an awesome flying airplane. So I'm really glad to have it, and it flies so well, and I'm able to actually share a lot of experiences with people. Yeah, there's a pretty awesome picture there. I think that's one of my coworkers that took that photo. And I had some passengers with me, and obviously he was in, I think, my Champ, and was doing some air-to-air with me.
So if for folks that, and this, 782 Papa's in the chat tonight, he's a Wisconsinite home builder, and he said this, he said, biplanes make you feel like you are in a solid airplane. It's hard to describe. I'm wondering if you could describe, for folks who are maybe used to flying a Cessna or something a little more modern, like what is it? I mean, you can obviously compare it back to your professional life too, I guess, but like when you're flying that aircraft, like what's it like for you? Like how would you describe to other pilots? Like we kind of talked about the magic part, but like the actual like stick and rudder side of it, how would you describe that?
Well, it's kind of a hard question because I'm not quite sure how to answer it all. There's so many elements on flying an airplane like this that actually makes it so special. It makes it fly so well. One thing it does, it's a very solid airplane, lots of lift. One thing a biplane has is a ton of drag. So you have to be on top of it in the sense that you better know what you're doing. If you lose an engine, you better know how to glide the airplane and aviate with it. But one thing, it's almost like a soul. You're flying an airplane that's 90 years old, so it has so much history, and it's like I keep saying it's like almost magical. But that new standard, when you're back, you're flying on a nice day, the air's hitting you in the face, the freedom of what we have here in the United States in airspace. I'm up there and just the hum of the engine, the wind blowing in your face, the smell of the exhaust. Like you said, you can smell things. You can smell people cooking in their house. You can smell fields being harvested and farms that you fly over, especially like cow farms, with cow manure and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It just brings an element in that you don't experience when you're flying in a Spam Cam, a Piper, or enclosed cockpit type airplane. So the new standard, it flies for a 1930 airplane. It flies so good. It's so balanced. I can trim the airplane hands off. It flies better with people on board. If I load it up with 4 passengers, it flies better than what it did with 2 passengers.
Oh,
And
that's
it's just
interesting.
it is. It's hard to believe, but I've flown thousands of people in this airplane already, and it's a joy to fly when you're um, the standards a little bit difficult in some heavy crosswinds. And if you got to see, I have a YouTube video that shows the controls in the airplane, but it has this humongous stick, right? Control stick, ailerons, elevator. I mean, they're huge. But the rudder pedals, there's 4 pedals down there. So there's 2 outer pedals, which is the rudder, and there's 2 inner pedals, which is the brakes. So in very stiff crosswinds, you better be able to tap dance. And what I mean, you gotta hold the wing down, into the wind. So you got a lot of rudder, to keep the airplane straight. Well, the new standard is very brake dependent. You better have good brakes on the airplane. So you got one foot all the way pushed over to the left. Now you got to get on the left brake. How are you going to reach that brake without taking your foot off the rudder? And that's where it's very difficult flying the new standard. So
So
I
can
don't
I
know.
ask? So you mentioned everyone makes fun of me because I have to make sure I put in the show at least once a week that I've flew J3s for my training. Are you talking about heel brakes like in a J3? Or are you talking about like a second set of toe brakes?
Like,
Like is
so it's, what a rudder bar is,
yeah
so
yeah.
really you put your feet like in the middle of the pedals are like in the middle of your feet, but the brakes is the same way. So you got to take your feet off the rudders to get to the brakes. So there's no like heel brakes. There's no toe brakes.
Oh,
And I tell you, that's why you see like you've seen some new standards maybe have some accidents over the years. They probably some kind of crazy crosswinds or something like that. But I've flown out of Ohio State Airport once. It 25 knot gust, and it was quite challenging. And a lot of events I'm flying with some pretty stiff winds, but you get you fly enough, you get used to it, and it's just a different type of you know pedal configuration and everything, unlike a Cub or a Champ or any other aircraft. Yeah, you can check out my YouTube video. You could see them.
all right, rock on. Yeah, we'll check it out. And Beshmo0 said that if you didn't see that, it says love flying with Dewey. The new standard and the Travel Air are both great rides.
Oh
So
yeah, well, I appreciate it. I didn't read that, but yeah, I I appreciate you going for a ride, whoever it is, and I've flown a lot of people that are repeat customers. I have about 2 families that husband and wife, they come. I bet you Pam and Gary's been like 12 times. It's really unbelievable.
yeah,
They care so much. I don't even want to charge them.
they're gonna take the clip of this video, and they're gonna bring it to you next time. And say, hey, you got to do a punch card, Dewey. You got to do a punch card.
Hey, I try not to charge them, but they always just give me money, and the other family same way, and they'll just show them like, hey, it's a nice day. We just want to take a biplane ride, and we build a relationship that is really like unbelievable. It's like the best friendships. They send me Christmas cards and gifts, and it's really unbelievable, man. So
I get it. I totally get it. I have some questions for you from Instagram. Some people sent me some questions. I'm just gonna like rattle through some real quick.
sure.
Tango and Juliet, who are the folks that
Yeah,
introduced us to each other, said if you had to absolutely choose which biplane out of all the biplanes is your favorite to fly.
the new standard. That's easy.
That's
Once you
easy.
fly the new standard, I tell people it's just a new standard of life because that airplane flies so well. Um, for a barnstormer, it's the king of the barnstormer, and I'm glad to have it.
Yeah, absolutely. Another question just came in from this is from Freedom Fixer Flying on YouTube. Here it says, Dewey, do you ever get to Hood River, Oregon for their flying?
No, I've never been out there, especially flying any of my airplanes. It'd take like a week and a half to get out there in that stand,
I,
maybe longer. But
I
I'd like to get out to Hood River.
it's beautiful. I've never been there, but I've seen photos. It's beautiful. and
Yeah,
and Freedom Fixer, go to the if you are asked about Hood River, you've probably been to there. There's an aircraft museum there, and they have a very rare J3 Cub that's powered by like a radial engine.
hmm.
And the engine, it's called the Papoose, I think. It's got a Papoose radial engine, and I saw it when they did the 75 Cubs to Oshkosh back in 2000 whatever. I'm looking because I made a movie about it, and that was in it. I remember they trucked this J3 and it's got the radio. I don't know. Go check that out, Freedom Fixer. All right, more questions for Dewey though. We talked about that. We talked about your livery. Oh, here's an interesting one. Dr. Dion wants to know if you have $25,000 only. That's your budget. What plane are you buying? He's asking about barnstorming plane, but maybe vintage plane is a better question.
Yeah, uh, a Ronca champ.
Why
I'm
the
a
champ?
Ronca champ. Yeah, I'm a Ronca champ fan. So
What do you love
now,
about the champ?
what do I not love about the champ? I mean, if you watch my videos, I learned in a J3. J3s fly really good, but for champs fly well. There's more room. They're a little bit faster. They're very economical, and they're priced right. You can get a nice champ for 20 grand or less. You get an exceptionally real nice champ for 25, and if you want to go and pay more than that, you're getting hopefully a grand champion in an Oshkosh or whatever. But you can buy a champ for 20 grand and do pretty well with it. Now that's a regular 7AC, 65 horse Ronca champ. I, I I think that's a good value, but there's a lot of values out there for that price. You could get a tri-pacer. They're very inexpensive. You have to. I have a friend out in California, Dan. He has a tri-pacer. He's taught me a lot about it, but you want to make sure you get the right engine combination with that. And then, man, there's Luscombs, there's Taylor Crafts, there's any small tail dragger you could probably buy for 25,000 or less, in my opinion.
And I think the one thing, as I've been searching barnstormers, no pun intended, for maybe my next airplane, I'm drawn to the J3 because there's like this history, right? There's this like aura of it or whatever. But like to get a nice J3 is like two champs or
That's
two
right.
Taylor Craft or whatever, right? Like it's like there's the door. I like the door, and I like opening the door.
Well, you can buy like a $30 STC for a champ and take the door off all you want.
There we go. We solved our problems. Aircraft Adventure says the other thing you could do instead is buy a fifth of a Stearman.
Yeah. You know, if you want to do partnerships, I just don't do partnerships. I like owning my airplanes, and then I guess if you find a partner that's never going to fly but want to pay half, that's the perfect partner. But I enjoy just owning my airplanes and flying them and doing my own thing. But I always wanted a Stearman to barnstorm, but a Stearman is really not a barnstorming airplane whatsoever. I can debate any Stearman guy all day long. My Travel Air, I have a 1929 Travel Air that I started my business with. It is a far more superior aircraft than a Stearman, and I tell people that. So And the reason is you can carry two passengers in a Travelair, and you
Right.
cannot carry two passengers in a Stearman. So I have the same engine that a Stearman has, and a Travelair was designed by Stearman. So you're getting a Stearman for probably less of a price, and it'll fly better. It'll
I
fly
love
better
it.
for so. Here's another thing for like barnstorming is when you go from like a Stearman or an airplane that has just a passenger, one passenger at a time, you really limit yourself to share the experience with people. And that's for me having a Travelair, I've been able to fly people or kids that are literally 2 or 3 months old and their parents. So you cannot do that in a Stearman. I've flown 95-year-old people. The oldest I've flown is 95. Um, I've flown paraplegics because I'm able to get them in and out of those airplanes that I have a lot easier than you could do on a Stearman. Stearman has very high fuselage sides. You almost have to be a yoga student to get in one, just because the fuselage is so much higher. So if you get like a World War II vet or anything like that, it really takes a lot of work to get them in an airplane. But with the new standard and with the Travelair, I can get people in and out very, very easily. That makes it's a perfect barnstorming airplane. Another thing that makes a good barnstorming airplane, you want to have rugged landing gear, big tires, things like that. So I'll quit rambling.
No, it's great. Sorry, I was just like in awe, kind of everything you're saying here. I mean, I think
Here,
the access to that's something I never would have thought of. The reason I was having a moment a little bit is because one of the things that and I would talk to the my Patreon supporters. We do the after show, and the kind of like question I asked them to help me with last week was my dad's getting up there in years, and his mobility is a problem, and I'm trying to get him into my 172. And it's hard because it's like the strut's in the way, the main gear leg's in the way, and then I have to get him up in it, and it's discouraging for him, and he just wants to go flying. And it's kind of funny, like all these great minds we're like all coming together, like, all right, we're gonna get like a motorcycle lift, we're gonna get like Apple boxes from the film community, like we're gonna do all this stuff to get him in there. And really, the answer, Dewey, is I just need to buy a biplane.
you need a you need a Travelair.
I just got to get a Travelair to take my dad up in.
That's
So
right,
I'll just let him know that's what we're doing.
man. That would help out so much on both of you.
It would be pretty great. Well, I mean, I think separately. I don't know. I don't think Dad's watching tonight. So maybe there's a birthday present for Pops. That might be a
Yeah,
good way. I never thought of that as a um easier, but after trying to cram him into the 172, legitimately, totally can see what you're saying, that it could be easier to get him into a Travelair or something like that.
yeah. I carry a footstool that all they have to do is just normal steps right up on the wing, and you know, if you get to really see how I operate, and it's a barnstormer. You when you go to big shows, the point is to get people through the line and get them to experience the flight as easy as possible. We usually hot load the aircraft, and like I said, we can fly 100. I think Ted's flown 140 some people in a day. So it's all about the accessibility to get in the aircraft, to get them out of the aircraft, and do it safely. And having aircraft, like a Cessna and things, you can't hot load people because they're too close to the propeller and different things like that. A Stearman you could probably hot load, but a Stearman is just a very difficult plane to fly elderly people or young people. So That picture there with the traveler in the cornfield. This is like 2014. This is a cornfield. There's a pumpkin patch, and the farmer let me land in their field. I literally was flying right out of a cornfield. If you could see to the left, but you can't. I mean, there's corn still 8 foot tall right there. They just took their combine and took 2 swipes out of their corn for me. And I'd fly 50 people a day right out of their cornfield, man. It was awesome. It was so crazy.
That's like the dream, right? Like that's
Oh,
like
yeah. People loved it. Honestly, people would call every year at the pumpkin patch and ask when the biplane was coming.
oh,
So,
that's awesome. Now what I need, we're figuring out what I need. I need a farm and a traveler, and then you can come land it and teach me how to do it. Actually, that's a question because we're almost actually out of time. I have a question for you. What can a non-barnstormer pilot like myself learn from you? Like what advice would you have for like normal like general aviation pilots based on your experiences barnstorming?
well, what do you mean? Like, do they want a barnstorm or not? It's
No, I just mean like the flying that you do is different, and
yeah.
there's like what can I take from that flying and apply to my own flying, and not necessarily as like I want to start barnstorming, which I obviously will be researching how to do that for the next week because that's what happens every time I have an interesting guest on my show. But like, like what if I'm putting around my 172? Like, what can I learn from you as the barnstormer pilot? What can I bring into that flying that I'm doing?
Well, always have fun, man. It's with general aviation, you just have to have fun. It's a hobby. Barnstorming is still a hobby to me, and it's something fun. And I think for anybody that's out there flying Tango and Juliet, or they are flying because they enjoy it. And I met Tim and his wife. I went over to the airport, but I met them because I love flying. I love general aviation, and I was out in Southern California and called them up, and we met and got to see his Pete and Pole. And that is what general aviation is about: is sharing it with people, having fun doing it, and obviously, hopefully that people are flying more often and being safe. So, I always I take my biplane. So, one thing with the new standard, you don't take that into real short fields with trees around it. And, through experience and things like that, you learn that stuff, but I think we all learn it. So don't take these crazy risks and hurting yourself, but go out and enjoy flying. Uh, Go take some lessons. Especially a lot of people, they still don't have a lot of maybe grassroots type flying. Go get some lessons, in a J3 or a Champ or a Taylorcraft or a Luscombe or something like that. And, then you can hone in some different types of techniques and skills that, we, I think as a barnstormer that you actually excel at. I'm pretty good at taking off and landing because I might do it 30 times a day. So it's
I mean,
just
some pilots might be doing that 30 times a year.
exactly. I mean, you got the weekend flyers, but then you have people like myself, that's barnstorming and or ride hopping, skydive flying or something like that. You're very proficient in that type of flying. So yeah, I would just recommend always just have fun and don't get yourself in a stressful situation. Um, for my professional, I was talking on another podcast, is like you kind of have to know your limits. And when you start feeling yourself getting fatigued or something like that, tap the brakes, put the brakes on, put it in park, take a break, and you can do it another day. Uh, Take someone else with you that might be more capable to maybe help you if you get in a situation. So yeah, that's kind of what I recommend highly on everything.
Except if you're in your airplane, maybe don't tap the brakes because they're hard to get to.
You know?
I
Yeah, oh yeah.
There were two questions before we usually wrap up with a game on the show. So hopefully you're down for that. But two questions that came in that I thought were really good before we move to that. One was a question I think Waukesha Pilot was asking it. Any trouble getting annuals on like these hardcore vintage aircraft?
No, I have a mechanic. For my biplane, so to operate under a ride business, you have to operate under 91 147 flight rules. And so you got to have a drug program and you have to have a maintenance program. So I have 100-hour inspections and then an annual. Anybody that touches the airplane must be under my drug program. And so I have a head mechanic, and he does the annuals and stuff, and I'll help him on stuff. But it's been pretty easy. If you have broken parts, on these old vintage airplanes, there's rules where you can have, like owners fabricated parts and stuff like that. But I haven't really had any issues. The hardest part is probably in the engine. But both of my airplanes have the same engine. I have a Continental W670. It's a Stearman engine, 220 horse. So it's a World War II engine. They made thousands of them. So you can get parts for them. I have 4 of those engines. I have 2 of them that's on my airplane, and I have 2 cores. And my new standard last year, I put a new engine on it. So I have to send one engine in, start getting it overhauled. And then, hopefully what I'll do, I'll pickle it. And, whenever I need it, I can put it on one of the airplanes.
So you're like, it's gonna sound super naive, but like you're really, I mean, it's like a little mini airline, kind of, right? Like you're making those same types of decisions about having aircraft ready, not losing aircraft to downtime, things like that. Like,
yeah, it's a lot to the business side of it, and it's hard because an engine is like 30 grand now or something. It's pretty crazy. So you got to have that kind of money set aside, and it's very expensive. So the engine that I put on my new standard actually came with the Travel Air. And so I bought the Travel Air in 2013. I sent the engine away. It was broken. The crank was broke. So I sent it away, had it repaired. And for about 3 or 4 years, it just sat in a plastic bag. I put desiccant in there to keep the moisture out. And, I just had it in my shop and just kept it there because one problem, I'm so busy in the summer with events and gift certificates and stuff like that people take rides. I can't really afford to be broke down. And a busy barnstormer can. You cannot wait a month to get an engine fixed. It has to be like instant. You have to be able to swap an engine out in a day or two. And that's kind of where I kind of always been. Now I don't have an engine sitting there, so I'm gonna have to get an engine fixed and setting ready. But over the years you acquire parts. There's all kinds of extra cylinders, starters, magnetos, stuff like that. Stuff goes out. You're able to swap it out and get it fixed.
I remember that from Ted's hangar. It was like
Yeah.
it was like, if I remember correctly, like very well organized. It was just like, boom, like here's everything I could possibly need. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and then separately, like I remember him and Sarah talking, and she's like, oh, like, hey, have you seen a blankety blank for the blankety blank? And he's like, oh, you mean this one right here? Like he's like ready to go, like always.
Yeah. Well, Ted's a lot different because he's a restorer. He restores airplanes. He has tons of stuff, and he's so talented, man. He can weld anything. So he's good at what he does, and he's been doing this all his life. So yeah, he has a shop full of spare parts on about everything. So,
I gotta get it.
yep.
He should. I gotta call him up. I think I got his phone number somewhere. We can have him on the show. We had a great submarine sandwich together. One
Oh,
last question before we move on. John Small is asking about transitioning to a biplane, and I thought that was. I mean, we kind of talked a little bit about some of your thoughts on just how we can apply barnstorming to general aviation, but
yeah.
because biplanes like a totally different beast.
Yeah, it is, but it's not. I mean, it still has a stick and rudder pedals and two wings, and I mean, you're flying an airplane. But like I said, it has a lot of drag. For insurance requirements, they wanted to see a lot of big biplane experience and radio engine experience. So I had a lot of radio engine experience from flying the Beech 18, but I didn't have any biplane experience. So what happened? The guy I bought it from, my travel air, Gary Lust, he flew the airplane in from Iowa, and we actually just went up for like an hour. I went up, shot a couple landings with him over at Red Stewards, and I said, "Man, I feel pretty good with it." And at that time, I've already had quite a bit of tailwheel experience. I was flying the Beech 18. I had a Cub, or I had my Champ. I've flown Cubs. I've flown Cessna 180s. So I had a lot of tailwheel experience. But I needed to get used to the biplane. And once Gary, he's like, "Yeah, I think you're good. You go on your own." I spent probably 25 hours of just flying around pretty much solo. I wasn't hopping any rides. I wasn't able to under my insurance policy. So about every day I'd go out and fly a couple of hours and just hop, landings. Then I started taking a couple of my friends for rides. And, I went to a show. It was the first time I landed on asphalt. Went to a show to give a whole bunch of rides, and I was scared to death because I didn't have any asphalt time on it. I was landing everything on grass. But it's another thing. I think the biplane, the ones I have, it's fairly easy to operate the engines because you have a mixture control and you have a throttle. There's no prop lever or anything. Both of my airplanes have ground adjustable fixed pitch propellers, so it's just throttle full forward and you take off, and kind of just running the RPM parameters. So it was pretty easy in that aspect. It's just learning the drag issues, and just learning how to land it and stuff like that. I was helping a friend fly a Fleet. He's never flown a big biplane, and a Fleet's not a really big biplane, but he was flying a Pete and Pole before. And last year, we had no intercom, so he's flying this thing like a Cessna 172 out flying 2 or 3 mile finals, and you can't do that in a biplane. So we land. We taxied back to the inner runway, undo my seatbelt. I stand up in the seat, and I'm like yelling back at him while he's listening to me. It's like, "Okay, let's try this traffic pattern this way," and it just helped him out. And I just stayed in the front seat just to make sure he was comfortable. And another thing is, like, the new standard, it wasn't made for dual controls, so there's no controls in the front seat. So when I flew that airplane, it was solo. It was quite interesting.
There you go.
Yeah.
Hold on to your butts.
Yeah. And obviously, when I flew the standard, I flew around quite a bit solo, and I wasn't loading it up with 4 people on my first time ever riding it. But yeah, now I've probably hundreds or thousands of takeoff and landing. So
That's awesome.
yeah, man.
That is so cool. I'm very jealous. I think I say that. I think the joke with this show now is that whenever anyone comes on, I immediately just fall in love with whatever they're doing, and I want to do that with my life until the following week when the next person shows up.
Hey, there's nothing wrong.
Yeah, except I could focus. All right, Dewey, let's play a game. We've a little game we call Short Final on the show. It's like 60 seconds, just like quick answer questions. Wow. Say that 7 times fast. I did not get a lot of sleep last night, and I'm mostly proud that I haven't said anything stupid on the internet yet tonight. But there's still time. All right. Let me get we got a minute on the clock. Got our music going. Get the clock going. Dewey, my friend, favorite airport you've ever landed at?
My own.
Love it. Oh, I think I know the answer to this, but I had to ask, turf or hard surface? What about the fastest ground speed you've ever seen in your career? Oh, I think we missed it. Oh, you know what? I think the music's messing up. Say it again.
Over 600 knots.
What? Okay, slowest. What's the slowest?
I've been negative, going backwards in my champ.
I was hoping you'd say that. What about, are you a track up guy or a north up guy?
Track up or north up? What's that?
I keep asking this question, and that's people answer that way. Like on you're like, what's a GPS? At work, when you're at work, is the you don't do it in your biplane. Does it show the track up on the GPS, or did the plane move and the north part is always north on the map?
You had me confused. We're talking biplane compasses.
Yeah, you turn the sectional, or do you keep it north up?
Okay, I would say track up.
All right. What about the favorite passenger you've ever had?
Favorite passenger?
Yeah.
Her name was Tracy. She was 88 years old. Her husband was a B-17 radio operator, and I took her in my travel air. She was at a reunion. I'm telling this long story, but when she got out, she gave me a big kiss, man. She was 88 years old, and she gave me a big kiss right on the cheek, and she says, "You don't want some old hag kissing on you like this?" But I said, "Yes, I do." That's the love of barnstorming.
Yeah, I mean, I was watching people hop rides, and people were hugging the plane afterwards. Like, it's something about it, right? Something about it.
It's been great. It's a great experience for everyone, and I tell you, if you guys ever experience it and want to experience it, you should go do it. Take the chance, take the risk, go buy an expensive airplane, and live your life.
I love it. Dewey, thank you so much for coming on this show, man. I know you had a busy day. You were flying, you were giving a presentation, you were doing all this stuff, and you made time for us too. I really appreciate it.
Hey, I appreciate you guys having me here, and I hope that, you know what, we'll do it again.
Yeah, dude, come
Let's
back.
Do a handshake.
Oh, I love it. All right, wait, I got to do this. Wait, no, yeah, this way. Yeah. I don't know. Does that work? Oh, yeah. Dewey, man, I love it. I've loved getting to know you tonight. See, I'm starting to get tired. That's not coming out that great. All right, I'm gonna sign off right now. Everybody else, thanks for showing up tonight. Thanks for checking us out on SuperAero Live. I think there's episode 42. Man, we got to do something for the 50th. I got to start thinking about that. Hey, if you're new to the channel, definitely please subscribe, share it with your friends, like all that YouTube stuff. It actually helps people find the show. It's all of the like crazy algorithm things. So definitely please do that stuff. It's really, really awesome. And a big thanks to all the Patreon supporters who help make this show possible. I'm going to go hang out with them on a Zoom chat that will probably go way too late given how tired I am. We just talk airplanes till one of them says, "Ryan, you look tired and you should go to bed." So if you want to do that, hit up Patreon. Otherwise, just share, subscribe, all this stuff. All of you are so amazing. Appreciate you taking the time every Wednesday night to hang out. Again, thanks to Dewey for joining us tonight. Next week is going to be Chelsea, High Maintenance Chels, an A&P. She's doing warbirds, fixing warbirds and all that stuff. So look for that next week. We'll see you guys soon.